Good morning, church. It is so good to be here with you all. My name is Hannah, and I am the preaching resident here at First Temple. And if I have not had the opportunity to meet you, would you do me a favor? And after the service, I will be outside in our connection point behind these glass doors. Please come by and shake my hand and let me get to know you. Because I have been a member of First Temple here for about 4 years now, and one of the biggest joys about being a part of this church is getting to meet all of you, getting to hear your stories, getting to shake your hands. So please, would you do that for me? I also want to welcome our friends who are watching online. Thank you for joining us this morning. We see you. We're glad that you're here. So my title, preaching resident, it's a little confusing, right? There's been some confusion about what exactly that means. So I will make it simple. My job is the job that all of you have secretly dreamt of before. Because every week I get to meet with our pastors, Joe, Evan, Josh, and David Goddard, and I get to tell them everything I don't like about their sermons. Right? It's great. Don't lie to me. You've all dreamt it. I know you have. But that dream might be a little bit of a nightmare when you realize that come Tuesday afternoon when all of us get together and meet, they get to say anything they want about my sermons to me. So maybe you're not too excited about taking my job now. We'll see. Who knows? Anyway, in the weeks leading up to Easter, we've been in a series where we're looking at some of the root desires we have as people. These are good, God-given desires we've been given. But sometimes, in response to these desires, we turn towards vices, wrong actions, sinful things, bad habits to fulfill these desires. Instead of looking towards the truth, instead of looking towards some virtues, some good habits, good things to fulfill those desires. So here's the list of the ones that we've been going through. And this morning, we're going to look at the root desire to be worthy, to have honor, and examine maybe why it is that sometimes we are prone to go to envy instead of showing kindness to our fellow people. So let's look at envy. This vice isn't explicitly listed in Colossians 3 with the rest of these vices, but it is throughout the Bible. Like, this is a thing that people have been dealing with for a long time. So 1 Peter 2:1 addresses envy. It says, "Rid yourselves, therefore, of all malice and all guile, insincerity, envy, and all slander." So what is envy? I like to think of envy as kind of like the ugly stepsister of greed. If you were here last week, you might remember Evan talking about greed, and he mentioned that it is taking anything and anyone and putting it in the center of your life, anything that's not God, to fulfill this desire. Well, envy is kind of like that, except instead of it being concerned with the stuff and what you're focused on, it's focused primarily on who you are because of what you have. See, the envious person doesn't want what other people have just for the sake of having stuff. The envious person wants things because of the dignity, respect, authority, honor, and love that they associate with having those things. Envy traps us in an endless game of competition and comparison because your worth and your value become dependent upon how you rank up against other people. In fact, envy so entraps us in this competitive game that it becomes difficult to even be happy for other people when they succeed or when good things happen to them. Because suddenly in our minds, if somebody else is being respected or given honor or given value, then we are not respected or given honor or given value. The theologian John Calvin will say it like this: "If others manifest the same endowments, the same gifts, talents that we admire in ourselves, or, heaven forbid, even superior ones, we spitefully belittle and revile these gifts in others in order to avoid yielding place to such persons." See, in the envious person's mind, there's no first place, second place, or third place. There's number one, and then there's nothing. And if you're not number one, then you're nothing. The envious person feels powerless. I mean, after all, if you were really worth something, you'd probably be number one to begin with, right? Now, if you're anything like me, you hear that kind of description of envy and you start thinking, well, maybe I'm not that bad, right? Like, I'm not sitting here praying that God would smite people that I don't like. I'm not, hateful against other people. Well, in her book, Glittering Vices, Dr. Rebecca DeYoung provides a list of symptoms for envy. And these symptoms are a byproduct of what happens when we let envy infiltrate our lives. So I want you to look at this list with me and see if you can maybe identify one or two things that kind of hit home for you. So symptoms of envy: feeling offended at the talent, success, and good fortune of others, selfish or unnecessary rivalry and competitions, pleasure at others' difficulties or distress, wishing others ill, reading false motives into other people's behavior, belittling others, creating false accusations against people, speaking poorly about someone behind their back, even if what you're saying behind their back is true, gossiping, antagonizing people, scorning others' abilities or failures, teasing, bullying, ridiculing, or prejudice against those you consider inferior or threatening to your position. That's a long list. And I don't know about you, but when I read a couple of those, I felt it in my heart a little bit. Because envy is seductive. It creeps into our lives and it grabs hold of our hearts. It convinces us of the lie that we're not worth anything until we've proven we're better than everybody else. And that lie works for us, doesn't it? I mean, we've already identified the God-given desire we have for worth and for honor. Show of hands, no one's sitting here saying, my goal in life is to be worthless. Right? No? I'm not seeing any hands. That's nobody's goal in life. We all want to be worth something. Human dignity is essential to who we are as people. We desire to be worth something, to be respected, to be loved, to have honor. But time and time again, we take this good desire, this good thing that God has given us, and we look towards a vice. We look towards envy to fulfill it. We think that if we steal it from somebody else, then it can be ours. But it doesn't work like that. Because the first time that you think you've replaced somebody as number one, another person walks in the door and you're like, oh no, I gotta take care of them. And then more people start coming in and all of a sudden you're looking around and you've got enemies everywhere, right? This has happened. This happens to me sometimes. I'm a student at Truett Seminary and sometimes I'm sitting in my classrooms looking at my peers going, you're pretty great. You're really awesome. You're really smart. You're really talented. And all of a sudden, I'm looking around and I've got all these wonderful people around me, and I'm thinking, why would anybody want to hire me? Why would anybody want to listen to anything I have to say? Have you seen these people? Have you met them? Maybe for you, this happens when you realize a coworker makes more money than you. Or when you log into Facebook and see that friend you graduated high school with has a bigger house than you, drives a fancier car. Or maybe you look at other people's families and you see the relationship dynamic that they have as a family, and you wish that could be what your family looked like. The vice of envy lies to us. It convinces us that if we can just steal enough from other people, then maybe one day we'll be worth it. Maybe one day we will have honor and respect. Maybe one day we'll be worthy of love. One of my favorite movies growing up was this movie called Cool Runnings. And it is a movie about the first Jamaican Olympic bobsled team. And it's a bunch of guys who have never seen snow a day in their life, but they decide they're going to be Winter Olympians. They're kind of crazy, but it's fine. They get this coach who is a retired former Olympian to train them. And they're going, they're training, they're getting stronger, things are going well for them. And then in this really pivotal moment in the movie, they find out that their coach is actually a disgraced former Olympian. They find out that in his last race, he was disqualified because he got called out for cheating at the sport. And the team leader says, "Coach, why'd you cheat?" And the coach said this. He said, "It's quite simple, really. I had to win. You see, I had made winning my whole life. And when you make winning your whole life, you have to keep winning, no matter what." And the player said, "I don't understand, coach. You had 2 gold medals. You had it all." And the coach said, "A gold medal is a wonderful thing. But if you're not enough without it, you'll never be enough with it." See, in our desire to be worthy, we let the lie of envy convince us that if we can just have what they have, we'll be worth it. But if you're not enough without it, you'll never be enough with it. So if envy won't fulfill our desire to be worthy, to have honor, what will fulfill us? What will satisfy this God-given desire? Well, Colossians 3, starting in verse 9, addresses this. Colossians 3:9, it says, "Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have stripped off the old self with its practices, and have clothed yourselves with the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge according to the image of its creator." Let's pause there for a second. Verse 9 says, you have stripped off the old self. You have seen envy for the lie that it is. You know that it will never satisfy your desire for respect and worth and honor, and you have taken it off and you have thrown it away. You've cast it aside, but now you have to pick up something new. You have to put on this new clothing. You have to reject the lie and embrace the truth. Truth that is being renewed in the knowledge according to the image of the Creator, verse 10 says. So what will satisfy our desire to be worthy? It's the knowledge that God has about you. But it's not just for you. What's really cool about this, verse 11 says, in that renewal, there is no longer Greek and Jew, circumcised, uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, free, but Christ is all and in all. What this tells us is that the truth that God has about us, the truth that is being renewed in us, the image that God has about you and me, it's for everyone. It's equally good for everybody. It doesn't matter what you walked in here with, who you are, where you come from. God knows what's right and what's good about you. When God looks at us, he doesn't see the categories and the labels and the divisive things we've put on one another. God sees us for who we really are. So what is the knowledge that God has about us? What is the image he has? We're going to look. Verse 12. Can you hardly stand it? We're going to get a new t-shirt to clothe ourselves with. Colossians 3, verse 12. As God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. When God looks at you, you want to know what he sees? His beloved. His chosen ones. The word holy being used here means to be made complete, to be made whole, finished, not lacking in anything. That is what the God of the universe sees when he looks at you. That is what the King and Creator of heaven and earth is declaring over you, that you are already chosen, that you are already complete, you are already whole, you are already not lacking in anything, you are already beloved. This is what he's been saying about you from the beginning. It's all over Scripture. Isaiah 43, Gary read it for us earlier, but now, God's message. The God who made you in the first place, Jacob, the one who got you started, Israel. Don't be afraid, for I have redeemed you. I have called your name. You're mine. When you're in over your head, I'll be there with you. When you're in rough waters, you will not go down. When you're between a rock and a hard place, it won't be a dead end, because I am your God, your personal God, the Holy One of Israel. I paid a huge price for you. All of Egypt with rich Cush and Seba thrown in, that's how much you mean to me. That's how much I love you. I would sell off the whole world just to get you back. I would trade all of creation just for you. That's the knowledge that God has about us. This is the message that God declares over each and every one of us. And notice this, it happens before we've even done anything, regardless of our actions. See, before we've done anything, before we have even clothed ourselves with a new virtue, notice that, you're already enough. Before you have even had the chance to turn to a vice or a virtue or any other type of action, before you've done anything at all, God has fulfilled your desire to be worthy, to have honor, to be loved. Your worth will never be based on your actions because you are already priceless to the King of the world. Our desire to be worth something, to be respected, to be loved, is satisfied in God. You, all of you, regardless, chosen, complete, beloved. See, this root desire we have has been satisfied. We are freed from the lie of envy, free to not compare ourselves to others. So what's the virtue we should put on? How should our lives look differently, and how should our relationships to one another be different because of this? Colossians 3, let's look again at verse 12. Colossians 3:12 says, "As God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. Bear with one another, and if anyone has a complaint against another, forgive each other. Just as the Lord has forgiven you, so you must also forgive. Above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in the one body. And be thankful." Our relationship to others, the things that we are told to clothe ourselves, to put on: compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, patience, forgiveness, love, peace, thankfulness. We should celebrate the achievements of each other. We should grieve when success is taken from another. We should pursue love and peace with each other above all else. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're sitting here going like, "Hannah, there was only one virtue listed for today. I did not sign up for this many," okay? And I understand. It's a lot. It's a long list. I know, kindness was the only one listed. So let's talk about kindness a second. Kindness is an action. Kindness involves using your time and your energy and your resources to help improve the life of others. So when you take off envy and you put on kindness, your actions are now motivated by seeing other people succeed. How can you help others succeed to the best of your ability? So in a way, kindness really incorporates all of these things listed in Colossians 3. Because when we're trying to see other people succeed, when that is our purpose and our goal, we become more compassionate. We become humble and patient and forgiving and peaceful and thankful. Our relationship with others improves when we view people as beloved of God and not people whose success we're constantly trying to steal. Now, kindness, I know, can be a little bit of an abstract concept sometimes. In fact, I'll be honest, when the teaching team was trying to put together what word really encompassed this, we struggled a little bit because kindness almost seems too weak of a word, too abstract, too far out for us to wrap our heads around. So I want to give us a few practical tools that we can use to help us draw our hearts more towards kindness. So the first one, invest in activities with shared common goals. So this may be inviting a friend to go on a walk, enjoy some music together, go to a concert, I don't know. Doing something with a shared common goal together and be creative with it. Because when we do something together just for the enjoyment of it, it helps reframe our minds so that we're not constantly viewing people as competitions and competitors. Another thing you can do is you can do an anonymous act of kindness. So there's warmer weather. Maybe you could sneak off and mow your neighbor's lawn for them and don't tell them about it. Or maybe you could buy a cup of coffee for one of your coworkers or a friend and put it on their desk, but don't tell them it was you. What can you do to bring kindness to somebody's life today? Just so that you make their day better, not to do anything for yourself. Another thing you can do is you can pray for the person you're envious of. That's something that I'm doing right now. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes in seminary, I look around and I start to see like enemies everywhere. And so there's one person in particular that I've noticed something in my heart for. So now every time I see them in the halls or I think about them, I make a point to pray for them. I pray that they would have a good day. I pray that their ministry would succeed. Pray that God would use them. And I'm hoping that as I pray, my heart would begin to change towards them. Would you join me in praying for the people you're envious of? The last thing you can do is you can practice gratitude. So maybe keeping a journal of all the things you're thankful for, or maybe you text a friend every day something that you're thankful for, something gracious that's happened. Because I think when we start thinking of all the good things that we've been given in life, we start to realize that so many of the things we've been given in life have nothing to do with what we've done to deserve them. It tunes our heart more so that we are free from the fear that God's love is conditional. Practice gratitude this week. Friends, God has called you worthy. Be free from the lie of envy and embrace kindness towards one another today. Would you pray with me? God, we are in awe of you. How deeply you love us, how much you desire to be with us, the fact that you would go all the way to the cross just to prove your love. God, we struggle to accept this love sometimes, so would you help us? Remind us of who we are. Let us see others the way that you see them. Would we be vessels of your kindness today? We love you too, Lord. Amen.